Well, hi, we're here with a couple members of a great band. We love you guys so much. King and Country. They hail from Australia, but you guys don't live there right now, do you?
No, Nashville, Tennessee now.
Nash Vegas. You've moved to Nashville.
Nash Vegas.
And you've been there how long?
Since the 90s.
Yeah.
We
Is that right?
We came over, the first time we ever came over was our dad had gotten offered a job, and we were boys. We were 2 of 7 kids, 5 boys and 2 girls, and we packed 16 suitcases and moved across the ocean.
Wow. And you know this so well by now, but Americans love accents in general, but they love Australian accents in particular, do they not?
I think that most English-speaking countries love Australia and Australian accents. The amount of times that we'll go speak with somebody and they'll be, oh, where are you from? You sound a little different. And we'll go, from Australia. And they go, oh, it's on my bucket list. I just have to go to Australia.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think Americans are so enamored?
It's like this exotic, this exotic relative that has no baggage. It's not like, you think of Britain and England with the history of America, there's kind of that, like they love it, we love it now,
right,
but there's that edge of like, forefathers and all that stuff.
Right.
Whereas Australia's like, we were convicts, like we're just down there, we were hanging out, we got kangaroos, and we're not politically charged or anything, so just, and it's paradise too. That's the other,
it's a lovely place. Edges of it are, right? The middle of it is,
there's desert.
I think I read that it's 80% of the population in Australia is on the coast.
Wow.
So there is nobody in the middle.
And a little known fact for you that Australia is roughly the same size as America as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. But the states, we have 50 states. Yeah. How many states do you have? Like 6?
Provinces.
I think 7. And then we have a couple territories.
Territories and provinces. Is that what it is? But now there's no real difference, is there, between a territory and a province?
Not that I can figure out.
Okay. Sorry to get all that.
We got to get the technicalities out of the way first.
Okay, so I want to know, just tell us a little bit about your family. Your sister, one of your sisters, Rebecca St. James. How did watching her career impact what you guys do?
I think we've said it many times, but we definitely stand on the shoulders of giants with both Rebecca and our father. In that, Dad, backing up before we came to the United States, Dad was a concert promoter in Australia. So like the old classics, Striper, Whiteheart, Amy Grant.
Seriously?
Carmen, the Italian Stallion. He had them all come to Australia for tours.
Striper.
Yep.
Striper.
That's a name I haven't heard for a long time.
Some of my first memories actually were looking at records of Striper because they always had these flamboyant covers and playing their music on stereo. And I remember going to their shows as a boy. So music has always been a way of life. And it was actually on one of those tours that folks didn't show up to see the band or the artist, and Dad lost $250,000 in about 2 weeks.
Oh my.
And that was the domino effect that led to us coming to the United States. He'd gotten offered a job, 40 years old, 6 kids, pregnant wife, had nothing left because we had to sell everything to pay off our debt, and packed 16 suitcases, moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and about a month after we got here, lost his job. And so we, Pastor, in a furnitureless house, sleeping on beds made out of clothes, no car, we would do anything and everything as a family. Rake leaves, mow lawns, Mum and Rebecca would clean houses, and we would sit, every day we would sit in our furnitureless living room and we would pray. We would prayed for a car the first Thanksgiving we were here, because obviously we don't have Thanksgiving in Australia. So we show up and this family just opened their doors to anyone who wanted to join them. We didn't even know the family, but at the end of the night, the father of the house walked up to my mum and said, I really feel like God is prompting me to give you the keys to my brand new minivan. Someone anonymously paid for our little sister to be born in a hospital. Some folks found out we didn't have any furniture in our house, so they grabbed a U-Haul truck and picked up a whole bunch of furniture, miscellaneous furniture from people, dumped it on our doorstep. And it was through all of that that Rebecca started her musical career.
How old was she when she started?
14, 15,
Okay.
something like that.
And you were how old?
At that point, when she started, I would have been about 8 or 9.
And 6 or 7 for
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So she starts her career. We half joked Dad needed cheap labor. So he looked around, he saw that he had 5 teen or preteen boys, and he put us all to work. And so you can't, when you look at, getting back to your question, when you look at For King and Country now, and you ask about Rebecca, or you ask about Dad, or you ask about that musical history, you can't. They're hand in hand. You can't separate them.
This needs to be in a book. Your mom and dad need to write a book. There needs to be a documentary.
We've talked about that, and I think they should.
Can you mention that to them? Because we've said it.
Okay.
And if they know that in Albuquerque, if they're going to sell a few copies, they're more likely to write the book.
Okay.
So if you could,
Yeah.
I'll do that. We'll sell it. American songwriter called your group Australia's answer to Coldplay. That's quite a compliment. How do you guys, with the enormous talent that you have, and you've seen, just your popularity grow, how do you just stay normal and even keel and deal with things like that?
Well, I think for me personally, you have kids. But
they always tell you the truth.
They always say no. But joking aside, all of us, and Joel and I are the ones that are primarily the front guys, and we have 5 guys behind us. We're all married, and I have a nearly two-year-old son, and my wife's expecting, we're expecting another child in just a couple months. And I think having a really tight-knit group of people that call you into account when you're out of line, and then also having deep friendships that when you're doing work, or what we call work together, that when somebody's having a bad day, you can go up and say, "Hey man, how you doing?" Or vice versa. Vice versa. And the other thing is one of the things that we do before we do concerts is we just always have a devotional time and a prayer time. Yeah. And I honestly think that is one of the most significant things that we do, because I always feel like it's just directing our souls to putting them on the right axis.
Kind of a recalibration.
Yeah, and I think that really makes, when we get up on stage, it makes it feel like there's a significant purpose, and we're reminded of that purpose every time where we get up and perform.
That's good. One of the things I've noticed about you, and I've said it to my staff, I said, I think there's people who play Christian music, and I think there's Christian musicians. I mean, your band, I put you in that second category. Not only do you play great songs, but you're first and foremost Christians. You love Jesus, and when you come to serve, and you come to love people, and it's so authentic. And one of the reasons I think that you're able to cross so many different age groups is because of that. People can just see right to your heart in the message you share. Speaking about your dad, he's quite a guy.
Yeah, he's quite a guy.
Just the times over the years I've gotten to talk to him, from when Rebecca was here a couple times to a time he actually was in the hospital here once. Yeah. But how has he shaped your musical careers?
It's interesting, correlating that to your last question as well, is Dad is, he's our manager, he's our dad, and he's also a protector, and he's here, travels with us everywhere, and that anchor is probably the best word I can use, is monumental for us, because Dad's not going anywhere. We can't fire him. He's Dad, and he has been in and around it for so long. So you have this wisdom and this insight that you can't replace. So it's a beautiful partnership, and it's sort of that 3 strands of cord cannot easily be broken.
Okay.
Like we see each other, we 3, as equal partners in it, and as if there is a decision that needs to be made, and Luke and Dad are on page, and I'm not, or Luke and I are, and Dad's not, there's a balance and kind of check and balance in that the 3, we work each other out.
Let's dispel a quick myth, because people see a band like yours and they think, oh, that would be just so glamorous to do. And yet you come in here on buses, so you guys are like road warriors. Yeah. It's so hard to do what you do and travel by road, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, you get into a rhythm. I mean, in a way, you asked us about our childhood a little bit, and just the way that we were raised, and we grew up on the road.
You're
and
like
so I don't
gypsies.
really, we were like gypsies.
The Australian version of the Von Trapp family singers, right here, guys. That's us.
We didn't know anything else, and so that's funny, because we'll have people come out on the road with us to write with us or do some work with us or whatever, and you give them 3 days and they are toast. Like they just can't do anymore. And it is hard, but I think we thrive off it a little bit. Like there's something about, honestly, when you are weak, that there is another strength that we believe in Jesus, that he sustains us, and I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, you've cranked out 4 services here, and in a couple hours you're going to do a full-blown concert here. So that takes a tremendous physical toll on you guys.
Well, we don't envy you and we admire you because the one beauty that the road affords us as musicians is a certain amount of repetition. Same songs, similar messages each night, and so you can kind of find a pattern in that. Now, the danger, obviously, on the flip side of that coin, is you don't ever, and you would know this well as a pastor, you don't ever want it to become routine. And it's funny, I've even faced that a bit this morning. The 4th service, I felt it in me, that kind of conscience saying, hey, check yourself, because you just did this 3 times. You know what you're doing, and I could get up there, and it's such a profound thing. Music. We were with one of your contemporaries, Rick Warren, last week, and he made a comment right before the show, which I thought was very simple and profound. He said, look, music has a way of bypassing our head and going straight to our heart. And that, we see that as a privilege. And so whether it's writing honestly and authentically, or whether it's presenting the songs, hopefully, yes, it's entertaining and inspiring and all of that. But hopefully you leave going, I know Joel and Luke, I know the other guys now, like they're my friends, because they shared a piece of their heart tonight.
You guys are 1 year apart, is that right? 2 years apart?
2.5.
2.5 years apart.
Yeah.
You guys still get into arguments?
Well, I think anytime you...
Discussions.
We have what we call strong discussions. Right. But I think anytime, obviously, you spend as much time together as we do, and sadly, we probably spend more time with each other than we do with our wives at times, just because of the traveling. And we do have our disagreements every now and again, but it's kind of similar to our father, that at the end of the day, if Joel disagrees with me or I disagree with him, we're still brothers. And at the end of the day, most of the time is, hey man, I still love you. I'm still very thankful to be able to do this with you. And I think that holds everything kind of it kind of keeps everything at bay. And I'm thankful for that, because if I was just working with people that were just friends, all of a sudden then it gets to be, does he hate me? Does it, how does that work? And this way we can be very direct, very honest, and I feel like the product of music and being with people, it's more honest and true, because we're not trying to, we're not walking on our tiptoes around each other.
And it's not personal in the end either. Like, you talk the discussions, we had a discussion 2 days ago, and we were talking about something in the set, because we debrief after every show, and we have about a 30-minute kind of dream session of ideas and stuff. And we had some strong discussion, but it's like, in the end, it's like,
just a discussion.
Do you ever get to take your families with you, your wives and children, or do you ever want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we, Courtney, my wife, and my son Jude were out beginning part of this tour,
2 weeks
and I am convincing my wife to allow me to bring Jude out for 4 days coming up in a couple of weeks. And then, Joel, you bring out Mariah.
Mariah's going to come out. My wife's going to come out this next week. Actually, she flies out on Friday.
Nice.
So we're counting down the days.
Yes.
Yeah. But my wife is very pregnant at this point. So
she is?
Yes, so she's 33 weeks pregnant. So at this point, all of that and getting out of the comforts of home is a little bit difficult. So that's why she's going to stay home, and I'm going to give her a little bit of a vacation before the next one comes.
Nice. One of the things I notice about your concert is that whenever you perform, you talk about purity a lot. Yeah. And how did that emphasis come to be a part of what you do?
We don't have a real tragic story in that regard. A lot of people have this kind of this awful past, and it leads them and impassions them to talk about something very positive, which I commend them for that. But ours has actually been positive to positive.
That's good.
In that,
what a testimony.
Our parents have been married for almost 40 years. They love each other. They're both here today, They love each other still, and our marriages are a product, obviously, of their marriage. And we have seen, as we've grown up, friends and peers and contemporaries who have fallen by the wayside relationally because of messages that we feel are culturally, even subconsciously, built into just Western culture. That's just not America, that's Australia, that's Europe. And that idea is one of the things we say at every opportunity is we talk about a woman's worth. Say, hey, girls know who you are. and know where it starts, that under God that you're priceless and that you're a princess and that you're worth it and all of that. And we say to men, hey, guys, it starts with us. You know, if we're not stepping up and we're not stepping out, then often the girls feel the need to, and then it just, the balance is all off. Like, we are meant to be the ones that fight for them. This whole idea of chivalry through the ages has stood true. And now we come to modernized culture and we sort of feel like, oh, we know better now. Like, history is history. Yeah. And I say, no, history is telling us something. History tells us that every single time there has been the demise of culture, you can directly correlate it to the breakdown in family. Rome, breakdown of family. Dark Ages, I mean, you go through it all, it's when the pattern of husband and wife and family has been offset. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of, for better or for worse, this whole idea is built into the DNA of King.
Yeah, it's really good and it's refreshing, and you can see how the crowd resonates, men and women. You know, I mean, they erupt in applause because finally somebody is championing that cause in the church. Yeah. Okay, so Luke, you've had some health challenges over the year. If you don't mind me asking about that,
you're good.
How has that changed your spiritual outlook? Because in fact, last time you were here at Easter time, we were praying for you. You had some health issues. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I actually got diagnosed with a digestive disorder on Halloween 2012, and I didn't really take it all that seriously at the time. I wasn't that sick. I knew it was an issue, but I didn't really know what to do with it. I was 26 years old, actually 25 at that time, and never been sick in my life. And so I thought that the best way to do it was to pretend as if I wasn't sick, and carry on, it's going to be fine. And what happened is last year I got very, very sick, and I actually had to come off the road for about 2.5 years and got down to
2.5 months.
Sorry, 2.5 months.
Okay.
Sorry,
yeah.
excuse me.
Okay.
2.5 months, and got down to.
It felt like it was 2.5.
It did feel like that. It got down to 125 pounds, and it was really a strange thing because, like I said, never been really sick before, and then all of a sudden,
120. How tall are you?
6'4".
So you'd have to run around and get wet in the shower.
Yeah. It was very, very trying, and then during that time, you never prepare for the really difficult times in life. You just always try and get through it and think the best. Huh. But my wife came to me one day and she said, "Luke, you just can't leave me. You got to fight through this." And I think when you're really, really sick, your reality changes. And so you just know, okay, I'm sick and I feel bad, but you don't really know how bad because you've been feeling this way for weeks. And it was at that point that I realized that I had people that loved me, my parents and my wife, that thought that there was a chance that I was going to go out this way. And it forces you to look at eternity. It forces you to look at the way you love your families. It forces you to look at your legacy. And one of the things that, and I just shared this story just a few days ago, that I realized was I grew up in a Christian family, and it wasn't because of that I got kind of programmed that it was what I did for God that made me earn His love. Obviously, we know that to be false.
Sure.
But that's the way I felt. And when I was really sick, I would walk from my bed to my couch to bed, and that's all I did. I was so sick, I just couldn't do anything else. And when you cannot do anything for God, and yet you still feel His immense love and His immense grace, when you come back from that, as I've gotten better, you live your life entirely differently. And that is the thing that I'm most thankful for, because I would hate to have been 50, 60, 70 and then realize the amount of love that God has for me individually, not because of what I do, but because I'm His child. I would go through all of my sickness and everything again to learn that, to have learned that experience.
That's quite a statement. A song was birthed out of that, probably a few, but Without You, is that right?
That's great.
And in that song, you're even kind of alluding to Paul's thorn in the flesh. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that song.
Yeah, well, when we wrote the song, we were out with a good friend of ours in LA, and we were out there, and he kind of asked me, he's like, "Tell me all the gory details. Tell me how it all went," because I was getting better, and he said, "I knew that you were sick," and he had actually gone to some shows that I wasn't at. And he said, "Tell me everything." And so I told him, the big story, if you will. And he said, "We have to write a song about that." And I said, yeah. And the next day we come together, and he's like, we're going to write this song today. And it was actually very good for me. It was very healing. It was very, there were tears streaming down my face. And we wrote the song, we demoed it, and we went back out to LA to record it. And Joel and Matt, our friends, said, hey, we've got this idea for you. And I'm like, the song's pretty much done. What more can we add to this? And he said, we want your wife to sing on the song. And that blew my mind, because my wife has those giftings. And the chorus simply says, I don't want to live without you. I'm not ready to live without you. So let's dance a little, laugh a little, and hope a little more. And then I sing, I don't want to leave without you. And it's this love song, but part of the reason why we put the second verse as this thorn in my side, though it cuts and stings me. Part of the reason why we put that in there is because I'm not better, And a lot of times, especially inside the church, we would have all these people coming up to me saying, you're back, how you feeling? Everything's good. And I'd go, no, that's not my story, but that's okay. And in a way, it reminds me of my constant need for a Savior, my constant need for Jesus in my life. And for that, I'm very, very grateful for. So that song, just the being able to sing it with my wife and us to have that moment, I'm not sure if I'll ever have another moment like that in my recording artist career.
So let me get this straight. You're not all better.
No.
You're still experiencing it. You're managing through it. Is
Exactly.
that right?
Yeah. And I'm on some medication that helps everything, but it is still, it's still an issue.
Wow. Let me just turn a little corner about some of your music, because it's pretty eclectic and you draw from different sources. Yeah. And I'm going to have to read these because I've been informed. I don't even have a handle on who they all are, but a hip-hop artist, Mineo, is that right?
Andy,
has he contributed to you guys in your music?
He contributed. We had this weird relationship with hip-hop artists.
Yeah.
Like Australians,
country,
and
hip-hop artists.
Yeah, no.
And whether it's, we were featured, we have a feature on Lecrae's new album that just came out a few weeks ago, which was the #1 record in America, and for that week of release, which is fantastic for him. We featured on Andy's first record, Andy Mineo, and then he featured on the opening track of our latest album, Run Wild, Live Free, Love Strong. And he came out on the road with us. We wrote it in the back lounge of a tour bus, largely. He rapped on it, and it's just become this. That was the only song that he's been involved with us, but it's this sort of for king and country with this hip-hop slant injected into it. And it's probably musically, sonically, one of the proudest moments we've had.
Huh. If you start rapping, would you be a guest rapper potentially?
Tonight.
Or
Are you serious? I've always wanted a rap debut.
Well,
we got it. We got it right here.
Okay,
we even got a hat for you.
Oh, cool.
So
and Ted T. Tell me about Ted T. What does he do?
He is actually quite a story, because our sister, when she first started music, she did one album and it did okay, and then the next album that she did, she worked with a gentleman by the name of Ted T, and they were like a dream team, and so we were very much respected him and always hoped to kind of work with him, but quite frankly, we had kind of thrown these ideas at him when we were kind of working our way up, and he wasn't really interested in it very much. And so, sure enough, this most recent album, we said, hey, what about now, type of thing, and he said would love to, and it has been a wonderful relationship, because he feels like he's watched us grow up.
Oh.
And so from when
we knew him when
little boys,
we sung on Rebecca's records when we were pre-teens. And so now that coming full circle, and again, it's a trust thing. You understand one another, you can finish each other's sentences. And he'd walked through a life transition as well, where he kind of needed to step away, and now he's come back to the music industry with just this wonderful vigor.
Yeah.
And who is Aqualung?
So
I could say what is Aqualung, but in this case, who is Aqualung?
He's a British. Well, actually, the funny backstory to him is we were massive Aqualung fans. He's an artist,
Okay.
British fella, and in our early years as an independent band, we were co-managed by the manager who manages One Republic. And One Republic had toured with Aqualung for a time. And so he'd connected Aqualung and us, and it was this real rare serendipitous moment where we met Aqualung, and we were, pretty awestruck, but we met him, and in 2 days wrote 2 great songs. And that never happened. Usually you got to kind of build each other's trust, but we were just kindred spirits from the beginning. And since we have become, first and foremost, just great friends with he and his family, and really, he's probably one of the longest standing, if not the longest standing creative partner that we've had through the whole
I heard you say twice in this conversation that you sat down with one person or another and wrote a song.
Yeah.
And that dispels a myth. Some people think there's like a bolt of lightning inspiration and you hear a melody, but it can be a real intentional exercise that you work at and produce. Is that right?
It's kind of like it can be all of the above.
Right.
It can be the bolt of lightning, but then, the amount of times that we've walked into a session and be like, I got nothing. And he's like, I got nothing. And the producer goes, I got nothing. And so you're all sitting there going, what do we do? And he'll just start playing something. And you'll be amazed. And it's one of the true marvels of creativity in a way, is when you hear a few notes on a piano or a few strings on a guitar mixed with those other strings, something sparks in your head and you say, I have something here. And you sing something and all of a sudden you just made music. And you don't even really know how.
Yeah.
It came out of thin air. And that's kind of what's fun about it.
So, and collaboration, it sounds like is very important to you guys, right?
Is huge. I think there's 2 things if actually we could attribute, and this probably goes for you as well. Look, there are days, like Luke well said, we never wanted to sit down and write a song.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the more you discipline yourself to be creative, the more creativity flows. If you just waited for creativity to spark, you would know that well with your work. But
you'll never get round to writing your sermons if you just keep waiting for them, right?
Like I would just come to me Sunday morning, inspiration will strike like that lightning bolt. But collaboration is the other half of that for us.
Yeah.
Collaboration here first, it always starts here, like we rarely write apart from one another. And then collaboration beyond. Now, we keep it a pretty close team. There's 4 producers that we worked with on this album, and every song was written with 1 or 2 or even 3 of them. So there was this real huge just kind of partnership and collaboration, but it is a very deliberate exercise.
Joel, you have said that the last 2 years have put legs on your song, Proof of Your Love. Is that right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Explain that to us.
Well, Proof of Your Love was one of those moments, I think, when we wrote it that we were washed up and we were done. Like we were done on every level.
What do you mean?
A real Cliff Note version of our history. We've been a band officially for 3 years, but we were a duo independently for 6 years before that, and primarily focused on writing. And naturally, no income. So Luke did a miscellaneous jobs as I did. He worked at a call center for a while. I did some traveling as a road manager for a while. And it was in that time that we'd written about 120 songs for the first record. And The Proof of Your Love was the last song that we had written. We had recorded a whole record, and then our CEO got canned, and we had to shelve it. And then a new CEO took over, and he'd said, hey, we love this, but we feel like you need 3 more songs. And The Proof of Your Love was the last of 3 songs that we had written. And we were Luke had gotten married. I had met Mariah, my now wife, and we were like, if this doesn't work, we spent 6 years on it, we were like, it's the end. And so we wrote that song over 3 days. The first day we wrote all the melodies, the second day we wrote the verse lyrics, and the third day we were so fed up that we literally walked into this writing session with a buddy, and at the end of the session we just said,
what do you think of this?
What do you think of this? Because we're about to give up on it. And he said, I know what needs to happen. And we shuffled a few things around, and that became The Proof of Your Love.
Wow.
And so it was I say the last 2 years or even 3 years because it is an example of persistence. It's an example of, like Luke said, when we're frail, God is powerful. And we have faced that on every level. Luke's illness, Luke's wife has had a hard pregnancy. My wife has been ill on and off over the last year, traveling, sleepless nights, red-eye flights, you name it. And that song has kind of been the thread. A lot of other songs have come and gone, but this song has been kind of our anthem through the whole thing to date.
You just mentioned something that sounds unfathomable. You had 102 songs ready for your first record. Mm-hmm. So a lot of bands, to get 9 or 10 songs is a stretch. How do you have that many, and what did you do with all of them?
We threw them out.
Yes. Are you serious?
Most of them have never been heard.
It's so
really
funny because people are very, very kind to us, and they say, "Oh, you write these songs, and you don't write a bad song." And I heard that once, and I leaned over to Joel and I said, "Well, that's because we don't let them hear the other ones."
And it's like published photographs.
Yeah,
right?
right, exactly.
Right.
And there's a degree of truth to that. And quite frankly, that 120 songs was us learning how to write.
It was our
songs.
college education.
Do you ever think you'll pull some from that and rework
We toyed with it.
Are you done?
We tried, and it just didn't quite work. You never know.
Songs are like a sermon. I mean, there are some points probably where you can pull bits from them. But the trouble with it is you moved on.
That's right.
You're in a different spot than you were.
Right. Joel, you tell a story about a tatted up guy, a tattooed guy who was changed. You saved his life. That's what he said. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and maybe give us another example of just how your life, your music, your ministry has impacted people that you've come in contact with? I know you got dozens of those stories.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the beautiful things about music that has hope interjected into it is we go out after every show and say hello to folks, and you hear these stories. And one particular night, this, like you said, tatted up guy, 20, probably mid-20s or something, and one of the guys you just wouldn't expect seeing in the line, He's not going to wait out and wait for another dude for an hour to say hello. And he gets to the end of the line and he sticks out his hand, and I'm like shaved head, and I'm like, "Hey man, it's nice to meet you." And he's like, "Dude, I want you to know your music saved my life." And people will occasionally come through the line and sort of throw that around, and you kind of as well as they know that it's just a little flamboyant. They're not really meaning it. But he grabbed my hand again and was like, "I'm serious."
Huh.
And he said, 5 months ago, your music changed my life. And I kind of kick myself now because I didn't sit down. It was a brief moment. I didn't sit down with him and say, "How?" Yeah. But I knew he was for real. I knew there was no it's whatever happened was such a serious moment that it had changed his life. I'm reminded of another story. This was a little while ago, but this young lady had written us a letter, and she said, "I was traveling home after a weekend away. I had this great weekend. It was a Sunday evening, going down the freeway, and I'd realized that I had not called my friend Jen. She called me a week prior, and I'd not called her back. And Jen had a hard time with depression and kind of self-hatred and that sort of thing. And so she thought, I should call her, and she had a little bit of a battle because Jen can be a bit of a downer. But nonetheless, she picked up the phone, she called her, and they had this stilted conversation. How you doing? Fine. What's going on? Not too much. Could tell she wasn't in a good way. But they talked for a minute and hung up the phone, and that was that. And then this lady, as she drove down the freeway, felt this prompting, "You should call Jen back." And she had that classic argument with herself. No, that would be silly. I would be embarrassing. I just called her. Why would I did my duty as a friend, all of that sort of stuff. And finally, for whatever reason, she reaches over and she turns on the radio dial, and that song, "The Proof of Your Love," comes on the airwaves. And that was just like, okay, I get it.
Huh.
Reaches down, picks up her phone, calls Jen back, and Jen answers in hysterics, says she's popped a bunch of pills, she's tried to end it all, and she's fading fast. And at that point, this lady was getting close to her house, so she got off the freeway and made a beeline for her house, called the paramedics, and they were able to get there in time to save her life. And that's where the rubber hits the road, so to speak.
That needs to be in the book that you guys are all going to write, in the documentary. That's great. I know you have lots of those stories. You have a very unique show. You have a very unique performance. There's lots of drums. There's levels of staging. And you guys it's like you're flying in the air and you'll get on platforms. How did all of this come about to be worked into this choreography, to be worked into what you do?
Well, you asked it earlier just about growing up out the road and doing music with our sister, and you'll be amazed at how over the course of time you go, I like that. I like that. I like that. And I don't necessarily know if we knew that we were going to get this opportunity that we have now, but when it became for King and Country and we were starting to do these things, for both Joel and I, we're very visual people, and you start to go, well, what are some things that we can do to be different? Yeah. What are some things that we can do? Who are we? And you'll be amazed at where it started. And where it ended. And a lot of these ideas, one of the first tours that we went on, we had one big drum. But we didn't have any guys that really played just for us, so we kind of had to do, and it just keeps growing. And I think the biggest thing, and most of this is Joel, is every show we just try and look at what can we do to make it just a little bit better, a little bit better. And you'll be amazed at when you have a culture of that, how then other people start coming in the band, start coming and say, hey, Luke, I saw you do this. Why wouldn't you do that? And what that does is little tweaks. And then what it does is it opens it up for growth, and everybody's willing to get better. And we live in a world where if they can pull out their phone and it can be very entertaining. They can read up and look at videos, everything. So you have to compete with that. You have to be better than that.
Good point.
So our whole thought is if we can be wildly entertaining, that they'll listen to the messages.
Oh, you're fun to watch. I mean, it's just pure fun and joy. You just see the smiles on people's faces. I was with Michael W. Smith overseas for a couple of events, and he said, for King and Country is my favorite. Of all those that are going on right now, they're just my favorite. So what's next for you guys? You got any things in the studio kicking that you can let out?
Well, we just finished with the studio, Pastor Skip.
Hang on a sec. We can leave the studio
in the
past.
Give me the road.
No, we're looking forward to this next month. We're right in the middle of You Matter, the tour, which has just been
overwhelming.
Oh, it has been overwhelming. That's a great way to put it. It's basically, other than minus 2 or 3 shows, it's been a sold-out tour, and the response live has been, and the stories have just been beautiful. So we've got a month more of that, almost to the day, and we're excited about that. And then we're taking a month and a half off, which is the first time in the history of King and Country.
Really?
That we have just said.
Well deserved.
Very kind of protecting that month and a half.
Yeah.
And then as of next week, we will be able to make an official announcement about when are we're probably putting this up.
Oh, you are. This is going to be by that time.
Okay.
Way by that time.
All right. So the beginning of next year, as long as you don't air this before Monday, we're going out on Winter Jam, the tour, and we'll be opening the show. And in about 3 months, it's for the last 3 or 4 consecutive years running, it's been the largest tour in the world in the first quarter. About 500,000 to 600,000 folks is what you perform in front of. And we did, it was the first tour we ever went on, and it was a profound, wonderful experience. And now taking the new album, the 5 guys, and all that we've learned over the last 3 years and be able to present to people is going to be wonderful.
Mum's the word.
Mum's the word.
Hey, well, listen, thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it so much.
We say it, and we've said it to a lot of you guys here, but as far as feeling like we have a home church in Albuquerque, you guys have become that. You've welcomed us with open arms, and whenever we think of Albuquerque, we think of you guys.
Good.
That's very true.
We appreciate it. Thanks for coming. God bless you guys.